zal nog wel een klein beetje moeten decompressen en zo. Aangezien ik hem op pauze zette toen hij op 80 of op 80 gig zat van de 86. En hij blijft doorgaan. Dus ik ben benieuwd. En sowieso dat games vanuit de Xbox Store ontzettend langzaam starten. Dat is met Crown nu ook al. Oh ja, dan gooi ik dat scherm. Hop. Laat ik even kijken of we hem weer fullscreen maken. Want het is een beetje raar dat als hij de game start, maakt hij hem wel borderless fullscreen. Dan gaat hij updaten en dan gooit hij hem ineens in een window. De rest is Aniki. Die hebben we nog steeds niet gevonden. De deur is ook dicht. Doe maar update. Ja, is dat deze complete. Nog 500 kb. Nu. Wat is hij aan het doen? Wat is hij aan het doen? Oh, kijk, er gebeurt wat. En dat scherm met tekst gaat vullen, toch? Of moet ik... Hey, Dirty, goedenavond jongen. Manager? Ik kan toch niet vertellen dat hij diezelfde issues heeft als Team. Oh. Druk op escape en dan doet hij het. Based on your system capabilities, we recommend high-end. Ben ik goed? Doe maar fullscreen. VSync on, frame limit 60. Dat zet je al in. 1, 2, 3. Emotion bar. Next. Satellite data streaming vind ik goed. Ja. Oh, hij detecteert alles. Ja, daar komen we straks wel achter, denk ik, wat die doet. Ik mag hopen dat we dat in de tutorial assisten. All assist. Laten we sowieso daar maar op zetten. Dat anders ga je het fout. Een V-Sync zorgt ervoor dat je niet van die strepen over beeld krijgt als je fullscreen draait. Als je window draait, maakt het niet uit. Ik heb hem op fullscreen gezet. Normaal draai ik alles in window mode. Maar aangezien ja, al tabben weinig zin natuurlijk heeft, Even kijken. Profile. 0 hours. My Hangar. Content Manager. Logbook. Pilot Profile. Dus achievements. Oké. Marketplace. Oh, dat zijn de gewone options. Op Marketplace kun je inderdaad bepaalde dingen bijkopen. In de Game Pass zit de default FlightSim. Dus geen upgrade of wat dan ook, geen extra pack, het is gewoon standaard. Laten we daarmee beginnen. Flight training. Basic control en camera. We gaan... we gaan waarschijnlijk een rondje vliegen. Zo te zien. Dus, hetzelfde vliegveld. Wat gaan we doen? Explore different views around the aircraft. Pitch and roll the aircraft. Skew aircraft direction and yaw the rudder. At reduced power with the throttle. Flight duration ongeveer 8 minuten. Dat mensen zo hyped zijn met dit game zijn persoonlijk snap ik niet goed. Nou, dat is ieder voor zich. Ik bedoel... Het heeft wat. Het zijn simulator games natuurlijk. Ik denk dat hier het grootste is real-time satellite en weather streaming. Maar als we ergens rondvliegen waar een storm is, dan zit in de game ook een storm. Weet ik niet of dat overal geldt natuurlijk. Of dat gelimiteerd is tot bepaalde gebieden. Ja, ik ben geen BR-speler en andere mensen vinden dat helemaal geweldig.
Welcome to flight training. I'm your instructor, Captain Molina, but you can just call me Jess. This session, we'll get started with some basic controls. Sound good? First things first, let's get familiar with your surroundings. Don't worry, I've got the stick while you get your bearings. Out your side windows, you can see we have great visibility over Sedona today.
Hold, click one of your left or one of your right.
This is Red Rock territory. Beautiful, isn't it? See if you can spot the Sedona airport. The runway should be a pretty easy landmark to find.
Button 1. Wat ga je onder 1? Voor de trigger.
There you go. Visual confirmation on the airport. Now that we're oriented, it's your turn. Time to fly this bird. The first control on our training list is the yoke. I still remember my first instructor saying the yoke is like a steering wheel. Almost. Sure, you can turn, but you can also pitch. For starters, it controls the ailerons. And the ailerons, they allow the plane to roll and bank into turns. Go ahead and try rolling to the right. Nice. Now let's see you level back out. Good. Of course, the yoke also controls the elevator. And the elevator affects the plane's pitch, right? Pull back on the stick, the plane starts to climb. Give it a shot.
Hoeft niet
The
eens
most
pull back.
valuable things in aviation are speed and altitude.
Dat de calibratie niet helemaal goed is van de stick.
But notice, when you're pitching up, your speed is decreasing.
Oh,
You
Wie had
could
dat
add more
gedacht?
power. Or for now, let's just pitch down. Just like that, your speed's picking up again as the nose pitches down. As you level back out, let's talk about another control, the rudders at your feet.
die heb ik niet.
Rudder pedals control the aircraft's side-to-side movement, also known as yaw. On the ground, those pedals are gonna steer the plane left or right. Up here, they properly align us during turns. Try them out and watch the plane's nose skew to either side. Simple enough, right? Before we go on, let's bring the plane back to straight up flight. Make sure your dashboard is aligned 3 to 4 inches below the horizon for a cruise attitude.
Op zo'n below horizon, zei ze. Kijk naar beneden.
Okay, the last thing we're gonna cover now is the throttle. If you have the need for speed, then the throttle's for you. Full control over the power output of the engine. Let's see what happens when you cut all the power.
Cut all power?
Surprise, surprise. Our altitude is decreasing.
Oh, je had dat verwacht.
This might be a good time for a piloting PSA. Always keep an eye on your surroundings, because nobody likes a low-flying duck. Alright, let's go ahead and throttle back up. You've left the training airspace, you need to go back. Alright, let's go ahead and throttle back up. You've left the training airspace, you need to go back. There you go. Speed is increasing, and as long as we maintain the same attitude, our altitude will keep climbing too. You're really getting the hang of your controls. Before long, you won't even need a co-pilot. Until then, if you want help with the radio or checklists or simply flying the plane, I'll be here. You can pass me the controls when you're ready to finish your session, or keep flying. It is a great day after all.
Wacht. Ctrl-Alt-X.
Alright, I have control. Good job.
Rustig dichterbij zetten. Kijk, ga niet last van krijgen dan. Next. Altitude and instruments. Gaan wij wel naar de volgende. In ieder geval dingen niet. Toetsenbord. Echt. Ik moet dat gewoon wat dichter bij elkaar gaan zetten. Oh, jij een beetje aan de kant. Oh ja, ik kan ik niet heel veel dichterbij zetten, want daar zit mijn microfoon in de weg.
Today we're talking about attitudes of flight, how your plane is oriented relative to the horizon. If you look outside, you can see the cockpit is just about 4 inches below the horizon line. We're flying straight with a decent rate of speed. This is the cruise attitude. Let's see how it reads on your instruments.
Vol 1.
Take a look at the attitude indicator. As the name implies, it shows your current attitude. The white line is the horizon, with the sky above and the ground below. That orange element in the middle, aligned with the horizon, that's your plane. Just like we saw outside, our current attitude reads pretty much straight and level. Okay, now let's see how much power the engine's generating. Check your tachometer. Looks like we're pushing around 2,300 revolutions per minute. Combine attitude and engine RPMs translate to aircraft performance.
Zeker.
Which
100.
leads us to your airspeed indicator.
Die had ik gevonden.
Now, last but not least, check your altimeter. To figure out your altitude, you always want to read the small needle first. That's how many thousands of feet up you are. Then on to the big needle for the hundreds.
Oké.
With our current attitude and power output, we're holding a speed of 90 knots and a stable altitude of 6,000 feet.
Wel gezien.
But that's about to change. Take the stick when you're ready.
Joystick. Nou is dat.
Pull back slightly on the yoke to raise the nose just above the horizon line. About 2 inches. Make sure you don't pitch up too much, or the angle will be too steep to create lift. And without enough lift, we'll stall. Alright, go full throttle and start climbing.
Heb ik al.
Welcome to the climb attitude. See how it shows up on your attitude indicator and tachometer?
Nu mijn camera
According
draait
to your
erover.
altimeter, we're gaining altitude. But we're losing airspeed even at full throttle, proving you can't avoid basic physics while making a climb. Okay,
heel erg
before we
weinig
go
airspeed.
on, let's get back to a cruise attitude. Ease up on the yoke and aim your nose just below the horizon. Then throttle back down to 2300 RPMs.
Waar zie ik die RPM's? Daar rechts.
Nice job. We're now set up with the same attitude and power we had at the top of our lesson. Next up is the descent attitude. Start by reducing your RPMs to 1800. Then drop the plane's nose a bit further below the horizon. As expected, with the nose down attitude, our altitude is decreasing while our speed is picking up. Why don't you get us back to a cruise attitude and we'll hit the last part of our lesson. There we go. Now that we know how to cruise, climb, and descend, let's talk about the turn attitude. Gently pull the yoke left or right to start rolling the plane. If you take a look outside, you can see how our attitude's changed, but you can also check your instruments for the details. As a general rule, you always want to keep your turns under 30 degrees. At the top of your attitude indicator, there's a series of notches representing 10 degrees each. Use them to control your roll.
Ik was daar beneden al aan het proberen te kijken, maar...
Notice the more you turn, the more you need to pull back on the yoke to maintain altitude. When you're rolling out, you'll need to do the opposite. Roll and push at the same time. The more you know about the main attitudes of flight, the closer you get to that pilot state of mind. So keep practicing, and whenever you're done, pass me the controls.
Control X.
Thanks, I've got control now. Well done.
Haha! Take-off en level flight. Oh god. Daar gaan we. Moet wel fout gaan. 55 knot. 55 is dus rotate. Bij dit vliegtuigje dan.
take you a mile. A mile of runway will take you anywhere. Taking off isn't hard, but there are a few key points to remember. First, we always take off into the wind, which won't be an issue on a calm day like today. Second, before we enter a runway, we always make sure it's clear. Everything looks good, no cross traffic. Go ahead and taxi into position. The rudder pedals should make steering the plane pretty easy.
Pak ik button 9. 9. Oh, wacht. Gaat er trouwens voor? Niet. Dus ik eens waar was joystick button 9. Nou, als ik kijk daar bij die Rhino stick. Oh, deze moeten zijn en dan nee. Ah, die werkt niet. Huh. Heb ik een knop voor de break? Taxi lights, landing lights, pilot heat, spotlight. 8. Dat sowieso ook eens even doen. Oh wacht, parkbrake. Off. Oh. Oh, wel heel veel gas. Ik wel of 5 het ook niet doet. An hour.
All right, let's do this.
An hour.
Apply full power and I'll walk you through the takeoff as we go.
Goed, een klein vliegtuigje is. Ik heb het slot wel op max staan. Ik heb het helemaal los moeten laten, maar...
Use your rudders to stay on the center line and keep pushing power until you reach 55 knots.
Hier heb ik wel op de centerline wil zitten, dat er allemaal kleine dingetjes op.
Good. Now gently pull back on the yoke. Line up the top of your instrument panel so it's a couple inches above the horizon. That'll pitch us up and set a good climb attitude.
Oh.
And we're airborne. Focus on flying straight. Use your rudders to keep the runway heading of 210 degrees. Maintain 75 knots and and we'll reach our target altitude of 5,500 feet in no time.
Wel op 5000. Bijna 5000. Stijgt aan. Niet meer. APM wil niet open. Ik heb mijn trottel weer openstaan. Wel het probleem waar we... Als je het helemaal open doet, valt de APM terug. Oké. Heel hard. Remmen. Als wij.
Ah, 5,500 feet. A nice, safe altitude for part 2 of our lesson. Straight and level flight. First step here is adjusting our attitude. We're in a cruise attitude, pushing max power. To stay level
very
at our
anyway.
target altitude, let's start by easing the throttle back to 1,800 RPMs. You probably noticed, to maintain altitude, you need to pitch the nose up. You could just keep pulling on the yoke to hold steady, but that's not really a precise means of control. Probably better to adjust your trim wheel until you don't need to push or pull on the yoke. Drag the trim down when you need to set the nose up. Drag it up to set the nose down. Try adding trim to keep us at 5,500 feet without increasing throttle. If you feel our pitch slipping and need to get back to the proper attitude, don't worry. Just pull on the yoke, then dial in the right trim.
Hm? 7. Hij weinig. Oh wacht, misschien gewoon 7. 1. Dat niet. Oh, wacht. Oké. Honden. Gewoon ingedrukt ook. Niet echt drukken, maar... Kan ik mijn trim zien? Ik vlieg laag. Oh, ik klim zo langzaam, toch? Oh, nog meer. Nu klimmen we. Dit durven we. Even. Volwarming is duidelijk. Dan ben we weer naar 5500. Een beetje vliegtuig. Je kunt het. Hier. 5500.
The way I was taught, when you adjust the trim, you make rough changes at first to remove pressure on the yoke. Then small adjustments to find the perfect setting to keep your desired attitude. That's the key to straight and level flight. It saves you from constantly pushing or pulling on the yoke. And that gives you more time to enjoy the ride. If you want more practice using the trim, go for it. Whenever you're ready to pass the controls, I'll be here.
Level hebben zonder te stikken vast hebben. Onder stolwarning. Dit is beter. Beetje stevig goed nog niet boven, maar...
Okay, I have control. Hope you enjoyed the lesson.
Check. Ja, we zijn nog niet gecrashed, maar ja, dadelijk moeten we natuurlijk gaan landen. Dat zal wel fout gaan. Eerste crash incoming. Oké, wel descending 55 knots.
My first instructor used to say the best part of flying is landing in one piece. The man was a terminal pessimist, but he wasn't wrong. Today, you're in charge of bringing us in for a safe landing. We've got clearance for a straight-in approach, so we don't have to complete the standard traffic pattern.
Okay.
And I've already set us up in landing configuration at 65 knots with 10 degrees of flaps and idle power. We're on the glide slope now. Maintain speed around 65 knots. Change your pitch if you need to, and keep your aim point on the runway number. When you're targeting the runway number, you want to keep it steady in your sights.
My number.
If it looks like the number's moving up in your windscreen, you're coming in low.
Like number.
You'll need to add a bit more throttle to get back on the slope. If it looks like the number's moving down in your windscreen, well, then you're too high. You'll need to add flaps to increase your rate of descent, but you'll also need to push forward and trim to change your attitude and maintain the same speed. Keep your aim point on the runway threshold. When you're 10 feet above the runway, it's time to flare. Once we pass the threshold, shift your aim point to the end of the runway. Then, pull back slightly on the yoke to aim the nose just above it. We're too high to land. SOP dictates we go around and try our approach again. Don't worry, you'll get it with practice.
Oh. Zijn helemaal niet gecrashed. In ieder geval iets.
My first instructor used to say the best part of flying is landing in one piece. The man was a terminal pessimist, but he wasn't wrong.
Daar is de way.
Today, you're in charge of bringing us in for a safe landing. We've got clearance for a straight-in approach, so we don't have to complete the standard traffic pattern. And I've already set us up in landing configuration at 65 knots with 10 degrees of flaps and idle power. We're on the glide slope now. Maintain speed around 65 knots. Change your pitch if you need to, and keep your aim point on the runway number. When you're targeting the runway number, you want to keep it steady in your sights. If it looks like the number's moving up in your windscreen, you're coming in low. You'll need to add a bit more throttle to get back on the slope. If it looks like the number's moving down in your windscreen, well, then you're too high. You'll need to add flaps to increase your rate of descent, but you'll also need to push forward and trim to change your attitude and maintain the same speed. Keep your aim point on the runway threshold. When you're 10 feet above the runway, it's time to flare. Once we pass the threshold, shift your aim point to the end of the runway. Then, pull back slightly on the yoke to aim the nose just above it. Okay, we're past the threshold. Start the flare. Keep pulling back slowly. Let the plane settle onto the runway. Don't push it down, but don't let it start climbing. Nice. Now apply the brakes to slow us down and bring the plane to a stop.
Wee. Ja, niet
Great
helemaal.
job. As they say, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. But if you can use the plane the next day, it's outstanding. Landings can be hard, even for seasoned pilots. Trust me, don't hesitate to practice. After all, that's what we're here for, right?
Ja, daarom zit ik in flight school. Ja, dat voor de eerste keer. Oh god, traffic pattern. Ja, het gaat wat horen. Dus we moeten opstijgen, een rondje vliegen en weer landen. Oké. Oh, crosswind, downwind, base en final.
Let's be honest, no one likes going around in circles. Unless you're a pilot training on traffic patterns. Sedona's standard traffic pattern follows a 1,000-foot altitude around the main runway. By the time we're through here, you'll know how to complete the full run from takeoff to landing. So let's get started.
Doe het nog steeds niet, hè? Die knop 9. Ja, dan. Oh. Af. Al op de runway. Full throttle. Al gas.
When we're up, keep us aligned with the runway and climb to 5,400 feet. We're going for a left-hand traffic pattern.
Wat hoor je dan anders? Dan had ik geen airspeed meer.
Once we reach altitude, you're gonna start turning left 90 degrees toward a 122-degree heading. Okay, we're in the pattern. Get ready to enter the crosswind section.
Oh god.
Good. Keep going till you reach the traffic pattern altitude of 5,700 feet. Ready to make your left turn downwind? When the runway appears at the halfway point of your wing strut, you'll know you're at a good glide distance.
Oh my god.
We've got the wind at our back now. We're on the right track. Lower your nose to a cruise attitude and reduce power to 2,100 RPMs. Once your speed is in the white arc, add 10 degrees of flaps to prep us for landing. Now's not a bad time to check if the runway is looking good. And it probably goes without saying, always watch out for other planes entering or exiting the pattern. We're gonna fly past the end of the runway here. Keep going until you see it at a 45-degree angle behind you. That's your cue to turn left again, onto the base leg. Alright, reduce power to idle to start losing altitude and maintain cruise attitude. Keep an eye on the runway as we get ready for our final turn. That'll also keep our speed around 65 knots.
55 knots met een idle engine. Oké.
There we go. The runway's in full view. Make sure to keep the plane centered on approach. If you're too high, add flaps. Too low, add power to maintain the glide path.
Nu ben ik te laag. Eerlijk gezegd. Even ernaast, maar weet hè. Oh, dat was geen goede landing.
Way to stick the landing. Now just apply the brakes to slow your roll. And make sure you don't stop on the runway, of course.
Oh.
If other planes are looking to land, we've got to move. Take one of the taxiways on the right.
Uh-oh. Ik neem erbij. De engine te starten. Zal er ook al eens een knop voor zijn. Start. I think we broke it. Dan, oh, ik kan het stuur wegklikken. En dit af. Bijna vol gas staan. Didn't taxi.
Good job. As an old instructor said to me, not only did you not die, you're really learning to fly.
Maar ik stond wel op de landingsweg stil. Voor solo flight. Sorry, net niet voor een solo dan. Ik heb toch alles moeten doen? Maar nou zal ze natuurlijk niks vertellen. Dat zal het hem zijn. Ready to fly.
It's time. Your first solo flight. I'll be watching from the ground in radio contact if you need me. But something tells me you won't. Your goal is to complete Sedona's left-hand traffic pattern on your own. Remember what we covered in our previous sessions, and you'll be just fine. Good luck. See you on the other side.
Dat is de enige die niet werkt op rustig. Ik zeg op de binders. Al op de runway. Lift off. Hit of climb. Nu links van me, of langs waar links van me ligt. Ik ga ervan uit, zolang zij zegt dat het goed gaat. Ik ben toch veel te laat voor de Final Pro. Laag. Maar hebben we hem redelijk kunnen herstellen. Mijn camera. Waar zet ik veel door? Oh. Dat had slechter gekund. Kijken of we hier nog eens een taxiway hebben. Taxi.
Great job. There's always room for improvement, that's life, right? But you did it all on your own. You're on your way to becoming one hell of a pilot.
Die ping voor die linksaf draaien was een beetje laat. Navigation. Het zal wat worden. Laat zien.
I've always said, flying is freeing. Open skies, endless possibilities. But to fully enjoy it, you need to be prepared. We're going to focus this lesson on navigation prep and procedures, the fundamentals of getting from point A to point B. Step 1, putting some distance between us and the ground.
Oké. Dat kan ik wel. Is zo raar, als we een trottel helemaal openzet, dat hij dan langzamer gaat. Wat voor iets is.
All right, we're off. Now keep climbing around the airport till we reach 5,800 feet.
I'm around the airport. Oké.